My name is Vicki Latham, and I'm glad to have you here. This is Building Strength Webinars. Dr. Ajibade flew home to Nigeria today. He's going to be home for a little while to visit his family, and he called me this afternoon and said he'd made it there on his flight, and he's not going to be able to listen because it's 4 in the morning there. I want to mention Building Strength Webinars program because people sometimes are wondering, well, if they missed this presentation or they have a friend who would like to get to hear the presentation we're going to do tonight, after the free presentation airs tonight, for $5 you can go into Building Strength Webinars and you can select this presentation and then you can watch it for $5. Or, and I think this is a much better deal, for $25 for a year you can join as a member of Building Strength Webinars, and then you can hear any of the amazing presentations that Dr. David has put together anytime you want, available 24/7. I want to make a disclaimer that nothing in this presentation is designed to replace your relationship with your healthcare provider. I hope you will always consult with your personal physician before making any changes to your diet, medications, exercise regimen, or before making any lifestyle changes. Also, it's always good to discuss nutritional supplements, herbs, and any complementary and alternative medicine things that you're considering doing with your physician. Nothing in this program is designed to prevent, cure, or treat any illness or disease. We are here for education only to help you in your health journey. My name is Vicki Latham, and our talk tonight is on personal detoxification and the truth about zeolites. I believe detoxification is the missing link in your journey to optimal health, and I want to put this screen up first because just in case you aren't able to stay through the entire presentation, I want you to know how you can contact me if you need to. This is my phone number and this is my email, and you're certainly free to contact me and after the presentation, and I would be glad to visit with you. I'm a board-certified physician assistant. I've been working for 30 years, primarily in women's health and OBGYN. I delivered babies for 10 years, and I've also worked in adult medicine and internal medicine. I'm currently an integrative health and family practice PA, and I'm working with Dr. John Williams in Stillwater, Oklahoma. That's where I live. And go Pokes. And because where OSU is, of course. And I also work as overseeing my business entrepreneurial activities through the Toxin Clear Health Network, where I work to bring about helping people to understand the value of detoxification. Tonight we have an incredible guest. We have Dr. Tracy Holdford, who's going to be working with us. He has 5 PhDs in biochemistry, organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry, nuclear physics, philosophy, and theology, and that makes me tired just to think that he went through all of that. And he's, of course, a scientist, a researcher, and if I put his entire resume up, it would be pages and pages. He worked for 20 years with the Department of Defense, and he's been 20 years also in private practice as an integrative health consultant. He's a member of the Cherokee tribe, something that really endeared me to him, because I worked for the Cherokee tribe at Hastings Indian Hospital in Tahlequah for 3 years when I first got out of medical school, and he's also the Chief Science Officer at Touchstone Essentials, a company dedicated to healthy detoxification. I want to introduce Dr. Holdford and have him just say hi. Are you on the line, Dr. Holdford?
Yes, I am, Vicki. Thank you very much for allowing me to do this. I'm very appreciative.
Well, it's just our pleasure to have you and your brilliance with us tonight. And in a little while, I'm going to ask Dr. Holdford some wonderful questions about detoxification because of his experience and knowledge in this field. But to start, I want to just give you a background about why we even think we need to detoxify. I'm just going to put this, okay, made a little change there. Okay, now, we're going to be talking a little bit about our toxic world. This is a global concern because toxins don't care about your geographical barriers. It doesn't care about your political beliefs. It doesn't care about any of those things. These toxins just go where the air blows and the water flows. And Americans, according to the CDC, now carry 212 toxic chemicals in their body. They did an analysis in 2002, and at that time, in 2001, at that time they said that they judged that there were 27 toxins in, as an average body burden of Americans. They redid that study in 2009, and they upped that to 212. So when people say, well, there have been these things around for ever, you know, and it's never really bothered anybody. This is really, this whole toxicity issue is really a fairly new thing. And just like Americans are carrying toxins in places where they have even less environmental safeguards, such as in China, the problems there are just even further compounded. I don't know if you remember back when they had the Olympics there a couple of years ago, but there were many athletes that did not even want to participate because of the terrific air pollution in Beijing. They didn't want to go out and run the marathons and so forth because of the damage they felt that they were going to do to their bodies because of the toxicity. And so they cleared out for a week before and didn't allow any driving in the city to reduce the amount of pollution that was there. So these things are something that are not just theoretical. And I was a women's health practitioner, and I was working at Oklahoma State University. And one day I got this large envelope, and I opened it up from the CDC. I didn't know why the CDC would be writing me particularly with this large envelope. And inside it was these brochures that was entitled, What Women of Childbearing Age Need to Know About Our Fish Supply. And it was all about the high concentrations of mercury and how women of childbearing age needed to be careful about their mercury exposures. And these toxins can be found in our air. Coal-fired power plants are one of the biggest sources, particularly of mercury pollution. In JAMA of 2005, they showed that polluted air can raise the risk for strokes and heart disease. The most recent CDC study on diseases related to air pollution showed 14% of American children now have asthma. We think of places like Seoul, Korea as being places that might even be more polluted, but they actually showed in a study to have even less than America at 9%, but 35% of their children had allergic rhinitis. And that's those kids that just have the runny noses all the time. Then there's the problems with our water. And here in Oklahoma, in the past summer, we had a major problem in many of our lakes from blue-green algae. In fact, it was so severe that many lakes you are not allowed to even enter the water. And I had a friend who, her brother was fishing, and he just waded out into the water in an area where it said that you are not allowed to be in the water, and he was seen by one of the park rangers, and he got a $200 ticket for having waded into the water because of the algae. So that was going to be some pretty expensive fish he was going to eat that night. But I'm not so sure I'd really even want to eat those fish. So, and also, too, chemicals are being related to risks of various kinds of cancer and breast cancer. In our local water here in Oklahoma, we have earned the wonderful designation of having the city with the very highest level of hexavalent chromium-6. And this was tested by the Environmental Working Group, which is some people that I really enjoy their website. I'll give you their link here in a minute. So if you would like to know about the water where you live, you can go to the National Institute of Health Toxin Information site, ToxTown. This is the address for that. And then you put in your zip code, and it will tell you about your water, about your air, about what's going on involving toxins where you live. People also wondering about the plastic that their water is in when they go and buy bottled water, and other plastics that we are using, maybe plastics that we have food that we microwave in or whatever. And on every piece of plastic you will find there will be this little triangle, and it will have a number in it. And so these are the numbers that are considered safe, and these are the ones that you would want to avoid. There's also issues with our food supply, of course. In addition to the mercury contamination, there's a problem with chlorinated pesticides, and there's been some significant studies showing the high levels of these pesticides being found in our foods, herbicides that are linked to cancers, and concerns people have with food additives, and a growing concern with genetically modified foods. And our homes can be also full of all kinds of toxic things, and these are common sources of heavy metal poisoning. Whenever they banned lead about 30 years ago, a lot of that paint ended up being sent to third world countries, and countries that don't have this laws involving environmental protection that we have here. And so sometimes things get sent back to the United States that have been painted with things with lead. Also, there's issues involving your plumbing, but the biggest source of lead for many people is through automobile exhaust. Now, where I live in Stillwater, Oklahoma, if we have 5 people at a stop sign, we consider that a traffic jam. But when you live in big cities, and I used to live in New York City, and where the pollution is so bad, and places around the world like Hong Kong and like Beijing that I was speaking of before, the automobile exhaust can be a considerable source of lead toxicity. There's got the mercury in our seafood, the concern about dental amalgams, and the vaccination issue. They have taken out the thimerosal from many of the vaccines, but they've replaced it with aluminum and formaldehyde as the preservative, so kind of pick your poison there. And then there's cadmium with cigarette smoke, one of the worst heavy metals. There's 3,600 toxic chemicals when you smoke a cigarette. So, of course, I always love the old joke that, you know, really the cigarette smokes. You're just a sucker. So, and cadmium can be found naturally in different kinds of water as well. And it's always good to, there's many people that will come to your house and check your water for you and test it for heavy metals. You can buy kits to have your water tested, and that's always a good idea, especially if you drink well water. Arsenic is also really a concern with well water. And then the concern about treated lumber. Up until recently, they used arsenic to treat these lumber, and as long as the lumber wasn't wet, or your skin has a pretty good natural barrier against it. But if it's wet or whatever, then you can have an exposure. I had a patient not long ago who came in, had just woken up in the morning, and there was his feet so big that he couldn't even put his shoes on, and this large amount of edema and redness and swelling was very strange because it stopped right at his sock line. And so he had seen several doctors and had tried various steroids and antibiotics, and he was about 2 weeks into it when I saw him, and his feet were just still huge. And so I began to ask him, well, you know, did you wade in any water, or, you know, because I couldn't figure out why this swelling would stop right at his sock line. And he was like, no, I haven't done anything. And I said, well, what did you do the day before? And he said, well, I just was creating a garden, and I was moving railroad ties. And I said, well, I think there's some toxins in that. And he said, well, I had gloves on. And I said, well, did you ever touch the railroad ties with your feet? And he said, well, yeah. I said, I would put them down, and then I would kick them into place with my feet. I said, did you get your shoes or your socks get wet? He said, well, yeah. He said, it was a hot day, and by the end of the day, my shoes and socks were soaking wet, plus my the railroad ties themselves were a little bit wet. Well, so I went online to look and see, and turns out that there's over 1,500 toxic chemicals, almost all of them carcinogenic, that are found in railroad ties. So I gave him detox, and he cleared right up. So that was the issue. We have sources of toxins from natural disasters. Now, Katrina, it wasn't exactly natural that we had the barrels of oil that were spilled into the Gulf of Mexico, but they were certainly a consequence of that. Fires are actually a major source, as all kinds of toxic metals can be released through fires. Volcanoes are one of the biggest sources of mercury. In fact, underwater deep ocean volcanoes emitting mercury is how one of the natural ways that mercury gets into our fish supply. The little fish is the bigger fish, and so the bigger fish end up concentrating the mercury, and that's why the larger fish are more at risk, put you more at risk of higher mercury exposures. And then, of course, we have our disaster that we've had in Japan that we're hearing so much about. It's so tragic. Then we have another man-made disaster with the oil spill. We're just almost coming up on our 2-year anniversary for that. And then this was an interesting one. Like I said, they don't have the kinds of bans on heavy metals and toxins in their paint supply that we have here. And so I don't know if you remember, but a couple of years ago, they had to recall millions and millions of Fisher-Price toys that had come into the United States painted with lead paint. So they started testing and watching for lead paint, but they weren't watching for cadmium. I have a friend who's an artist who tells me that cadmium is added to paint because it's what gives the brightest colors. But luckily they did find, before too many people got these Shrek glasses, and McDonald's had to do a huge recall of millions of these cadmium-laden glasses. And we also have toxins we can find in our skincare. Studies show that while there's thousands of ingredients, very, very low amounts of testing is actually done on these ingredients we put on our skin. And the average person is exposed to 85 chemicals daily due to soaps, skincare, and cosmetic products. Our skin is really our biggest detox organ, but it also absorbs toxins extremely well. You can go to cosmetics database, and on that site you'll be able to read about what is in the skincare and cosmetics that you're using. For myself, when I went to medical school, they really told us almost nothing about toxins. And in fact, I'm going to give you my entire medical school lecture on toxicity. Here it goes. Some children will eat paint chips if they live in old houses, and if they do, they can get lead poisoning. If you find a child with high levels of lead, you'll want to send them for chelation therapy. That's it. That was the entire lecture. That's all I knew. I knew nothing about any of this. So when I saw this study, which is really considered a benchmark study done by the Environmental Working Group, this was what really opened my eyes to this issue. I'm an OBGYN PA. It's my passion about moms being healthy in pregnancy. And so when I saw this study showing that the average newborn has over 200 toxic chemicals in their umbilical cord at birth, and that every baby had Teflon, flame retardants, mercury, and pesticides, this was just eye-opening for me. Because the reality is, if newborns are toxic, then what's the chance of the rest of us who've been eating, breathing, and drinking things here on planet Earth, that we're pristine? There's an overwhelming number and variety of industrial chemicals that are being used, at least 85,000 industrially, and less than 10% have been tested for safety in humans individually or synergistically. I know they talk now about third-hand smoke. First-hand smoke is when I smoke. Second-hand is when you inhale what I have exhaled. And third-hand smoke now is when that smoke lands, let's say, on your child and combines with the flame retardants in their pajamas or on your walls and combines with the latex paint, creating new and almost always carcinogenic chemicals. Another thing that was mind-blowing to me is that on the recent EPA list of the 7,000 most toxic chemicals, 71% of those have only been created in the last 10 years. So this is a fairly new phenomenon. And these invisible killers can often be tasteless, odorless, and colorless. There's a compelling association also with prenatal exposures and neurotoxic effects in children. So it has become my passion, my mission, to detoxify the people who are going to give birth to the next generation. Because we actually have now, through safe detoxification, the potential for the next generation to be healthier, not sicker than the previous generation. Preborn children, I consider the canary in the coal mine for toxicity. They are the most vulnerable among us. The liver of the fetus actually doesn't function to detox until the 9th month of life. these toxins can be mobilized out of the fat stores of the mother and then actively transported into the fetal circulation, where they can be stored in the brain and cause issues. And also, some of these things can work as hormone emulators or disruptors, where they can bind on receptor sites and interfere with normal binding of normal hormones, such as estrogen or insulin, setting them up for all kinds of things like PCOS or diabetes later in life. This is just one study, but once your eyes are open to this, you're going to find that information on environmental toxicity and studies involving this are just everywhere. Also, too, there's a big concern about autism spectrum disorder. The CDC statistics says that 1 in every 100 children now has autism in some form. And in some studies, the rates can be even higher. Most researchers do not believe that this huge rise in autism is genetic. They believe that it is epigenetic. The reason being that it takes a very, very long time for significant genetic changes to happen. But epigenetic changes can happen quickly. There was a study from the University of Washington that showed that epigenetic, meaning the expression of the genes, the various proteins that express from the genes and actually control genetic expression in the body, can actually be passed down 4 generations. So you smoking now actually could be setting up your children's children's children for lung cancer. So these epigenetic changes, due to so many of these toxic effects, are believed to be one of the major factors in this. And while genes are difficult or impossible to change, epigenetic changes can be altered. And when I talk with people on diabetes, we now believe that so many things about things like obesity are that people say, well, this is just the way we are in our family. You know, we just all have diabetes and we're all overweight. And we now believe that these are epigenetics, not genetics. So, and one of the reasons that autism really speaks to this as not a genetic change is that 20 years ago, autism was really extremely rare. It was in the range of 1 in every 3,500, and now it's 1 in 100. And genetic changes cannot happen that fast. So that's one of the reasons that they believe that this is an epigenetic. But it's very multifactorial, and it is probably unique to every child, some combination of epigenetic or environmental factors, their unique fetal exposures, and the individual functioning of their detoxification pathways. Because in general, these children do not detoxify very well. They almost all test high for heavy metals and toxins. This is the Autism Research Institute is an excellent site to go and learn more about this. And then our toxic body burden. These are conditions that are believed to be linked to toxicity. So we've had all this bad news. Now we're going to have some really, really good news, because now is the right time for us to make changes. And one of the best things is that human beings are capable of change. When I began to do research on how to help people, how to motivate people to change, one of the things that I learned is that you have to have 3 things in order for people to change. You have to have a belief that change is possible, And you have to develop a vision for change. You have to believe that that change will be beneficial, that any sacrifice that it might require will bring about a better future for you. And people have to believe they can actually do it. And we've all been in situations where, let's say, stop smoking. People might believe that, you know, stopping smoking would really be a good thing, and I believe it's really possible for other people, but they don't believe they can do it for themselves. Or people believe they, you know, that it would be really great if they were to lose weight, and they know it would be beneficial, but they just don't really want to go through all the things that are going to be required to do it. So all three things need to be in place for you to change. And so that's what I'm going to show you, is some things that you can do that are very easy and convenient for you to find a way that you can detoxify. I believe that as a jumping off place, there are 5 things that we ought to all focus on in improving one's health. The first one being detoxification, because like I said, I believe it is the very first step on your journey to optimal health. Once you detoxify and get these toxins out of your body, then the food that you eat, the supplements you take, the medications you use, everything is going to work better. You need sufficient exercise, you need an excellent diet, whole food supplements, because our foods now are deficient and highly processed, and reduce our stress, because it has a very negative effect on our immune system as well as our emotional health. So how much toxicity can we handle, and how can we go green on the inside? How can we protect ourselves, our children, and our preborn children from the effects of environmental toxicity? Now, your body burden is the amount of toxins that are present in your body that exceeds the amount that you can detoxify through normal body mechanisms in your liver, your skin, your kidneys, your bowel, and your breath. Now, I recommend that, first of all, you don't have to take out what you don't put in. So try to eat real food, food that isn't full of chemical additives, preservatives, food that is not genetically modified, and purchase your food grown close to home. Enjoy farmers markets, find a friend who grows tomatoes in their backyard, join a CSA, which is, we have that here, where we joined a cooperative with a local farmer, and he grows things, and we just pay a weekly fee and go and pick up our groceries and our fresh fruits and vegetables that he grows on his farm. This helps him and helps you buy something that is wholesome and fresh. I have a friend who says it's not the food in your life that matters, it's the life in your food that matters. So try to eat something that's been alive somewhat recently. And of course, buying organic whenever possible, but you want to educate yourself on what organic really means, because there are so many things out there that are claiming to be organic, which are really questionable. Again, here's the Environmental Working Group site. They have a list every year of what foods that they think are the most important for you to purchase organic and which ones you can buy regular, because we all have to watch our budgets. And wash your food well before you eat it. A lot of these pesticides, herbicides, and other things can be washed off if you wash your food well. Now, here's an important concept for detoxification. Specific heavy metals have an affinity for specific healthy minerals. So, for example, lead likes to displace calcium in the body. So where do we store the lead that we become toxic with? It's going to get stored in the bones, because that's where most of our calcium is. Cadmium and arsenic likes to displace zinc. Mercury likes to displace magnesium. Now this is a zinc finger protein, and this is an example of this. The zinc in this protein, which you must have in order to regenerate a cell. When you're ill or you have cellular damage, you've cut yourself or hurt yourself, you have to have these zinc finger proteins, these epigenetic proteins in order to heal. And but zinc can be displaced by heavy metals. And if you remember, the heavy metals that can displace this are cadmium and arsenic. And cadmium is one of the most abundant heavy metals in cigarette smoke. And there's also arsenic. So those things could displace the heavy metals, the good metal, zinc, in your zinc finger proteins. And when you think about smokers, what is one of the things you think about? They don't heal very well. And this could be contributing. Now, active detoxification methods. I like to break down my methods when I'm talking about how to detoxify into both active and passive. Active meaning that it aids the body in doing what it already does, just more effectively, and passive meaning that it actually removes the toxins from the body for you. These are some of the most common active methods that people think of. Massage, doing lymphatic drainage, helps to stimulate and release toxins from our skin, our muscles, and our tissues. Essential oils used with this massage can actually enhance the release of these toxins. Sweating, people have been going to sweat lodges for as long as we know and sweating out those toxins. But now we have new modern ways through infrared saunas that will mobilize the stored toxins in our fat, forcing the sweat glands to sweat it out. Most people, when they think about detoxing, the first thing they think of is laxatives, colonics, cleaning yourself out through these purging methods. And again, having prebiotics and probiotics to put back the healthy bacteria is always helpful. There's some very interesting research in that you may not just be what you eat, you may be what your bacteria eat. And that's a topic for another day, but probiotics are certainly a very, very interesting topic. Acupuncture and acupressure has been particularly shown good with people who are detoxing from addictions. Algae are interesting, like chlorella and spirulina, that can combine with heavy metals and form compounds that make it more easily eliminated by the body. Herbal detoxification, of course, people have said, well, you know, I'm going to take this because it detoxes the liver, or detoxes the kidneys, or cleans the blood. And but actually, of all the methods I've mentioned, herbal detoxification is the least effective, although it is still a good method of active detoxification. Then there are specific nutrients. Of course, our bodies can't really detoxify without glutathione. Enzymes are helpful, lysine, and antioxidants, taking out the free radicals, are all going to be helpful in detoxing the body. Just pure water is an excellent detoxifier, and you want to use water that has healthy, normal pH of 7, or maybe slightly on the alkaline side, but not excessively alkaline. Drinking only alkaline water all the time can affect your digestion, because you know that acid is there to help digest your food, so you don't want to have affect your acidity all the time, but occasionally to have more alkaline water can be helpful at times. And then diets, raw and live food diets, again, eating something that's been live recently and still has intact enzymes and hasn't been heated or cooked that destroys so much of the nutrient value of your food is always good. And then fasting, people have been fasting forever as a way to detoxify. All these active methods can be beneficial, They can aid the body in detoxifying better, but they do require knowledge and discipline to be safe and effective. And one of the things that can happen with all these active methods is that they release the toxins from where they've been stored or sequestered in the body. And when you do release them, as they're going through the process of being detoxified by your liver, your kidneys, your bowel, sometimes you can get what's called a detox reaction. And because you've brought these toxins back into circulation. There's pharmaceutical detoxification, which is where they use chemical agents that are usually chelators. They are negatively charged, and they will attract, for instance, a -2 will attract a +2 lead or a +2 mercury and bind onto that to remove it from the body. But they're non-specific because along with these +2 heavy metals, they also can remove +2 calcium and magnesium. And so it requires experience when you're going to do this. And so if you are going to do this, you want to go to somebody who really knows what they're doing. It is usually very expensive, and it requires multiple treatments and multiple lab testing to make sure, especially that you're not becoming hypocalcemic. Now, this is my very favorite way to passively detoxify, and that is with zeolites. And again, active detoxification means that you are actively making the body release toxins into the bloodstream for your body to remove through normal detoxification mechanisms. Passive detoxification means that your body is minimally involved, that you're putting something in your body that is actually going to remove the toxins for you. And zeolites are my favorite way to do that. These are natural minerals that are formed when volcanic ash meets seawater. They're abundant throughout the earth, and they have this unique property in that its powerful negative charge attracts positively charged bad things that should never have been in your body in the first place. The most commonly used zeolite is called clinoptilolite. It has these very unique properties, and it's one of 49 different types of zeolites. The FDA has given it GRAS status. It's recognized as safe. It has multiple studies in humans and animals, and many studies in industrial use, such as in animal feed, air purification system, and now for detoxification in humans. It is sold as a nutritional supplement, and there are many types, many brands, and quality is variable. There are some that are pure clinoptilolite, some that are mixed with other zeolites, and some that are mixed with some of the more active methods. The properties of the zeolite clinoptilolite, it works as a toxin trap. It has a huge negative charge that traps the heavy metals and toxins along with the environmental pollutants. And now we're going to have some questions with Dr. Holdford, as he's going to talk now about clinoptilolite and zeolite. So Dr. Holdford, are you there?
I am, Vicki. Thank you.
Okay. And if you can turn up your mic just a tiny bit, that would be great. Okay, first of all, I want to ask you what your experience has been in working with zeolites.
Well, most of my experience has been using the zeolite in more industrial applications for everything from ultra-high purity, water production to nuclear remediation projects, using them as molecular sieves. We did use zeolite packs for wound healing and for stopping blood, things like that in combat situations. But most of mine have been on the industrial application side, and then over the last several years more on the human side. So mostly industrial applications.
Well, what properties do you find in zeolites in general and clinoptilolite in particular that makes it so unique and special?
Well, in the zeolites in general, that ability to take out the heavy metals specifically, those positive charge heavy metals because it's strong negative charge, without damaging the physiology. In other words, it's not going to be damage to the kidneys, for example, that certain chelation techniques may have issues with. There's not going to be damage from the toxins recirculating through your system. Because once the zeolite has that material locked in, it's truly a strong chemical bond, and it doesn't go anywhere, and it stays there until it's eliminated. The issue with the reason I like the clinoptilolite is that it's so well studied, through the literature and through both animal and human studies, so that it is, recognized as being very, very safe for people of all ages. There are zeolites which are, not as well studied, and they do have side effects which the clinoptilolite just simply doesn't have.
Great. So why would you say clinoptilolite is chosen as the best zeolite for human cellular detoxification? And what's been your personal experience with this clinoptilolite mineral?
Well, the reason it's chosen is twofold. One, it's readily available. It's not as exotic as some of the other natural zeolites. So because it's readily available, it's the opportunity to study it well, which is also available. So those studies are the main issue as far as the safety concerns and as far as the efficacy questions, because it's been so well studied that we know how it responds, we know how it acts, and we know why it acts the way it does. And that's important to know. My own personal experience with it has been just intensely looking at specifically the clinoptilolite and the differences in the different raw material sources, and how those work inside the human physiology. There's been a lot of studies done, and these are available at the pubmed.gov, that talk about the differences in how the charges react with different forms of zeolite. And clinoptilolite is the most generalized, safest form out there for human consumption.
We're seeing with various claims by different companies that are producing a clinoptilolite or zeolite product that they're claiming about being micronized, purified, and activated. And can you kind of define those terms, the micronization, purification, and activation, and can you tell me exactly what that means?
Well, if you go to Webster's Unabridged Dictionary, micronization simply means to reduce down to a smaller size. In a legalistic sense and an industrial sense, it's anything below 20 microns. The biggest issue with micronization in that terminology, one reason I don't like to use it myself, is that there's no size absolutes in there. There's no requirement for you to say, our product is this size. We micronize. So it's more of a marketing term. Purification and activation are also, I feel, very just marketing terms. Zeolite is a naturally mined mineral. It's been in the ground for a long, long time, thousands of years. And so through rainwater attrition, through other mechanisms, it's absorbed a lot of things which it naturally does. And zeolite is a hydrated aluminum silicate. With a hydration means it can flow water in and out very readily. So anything that's soluble that goes in through water mechanisms are especially prone to go into the zeolites. So when you say purification, I mean, zeolite should be cleaned up before human consumption anyway. There's no requirement for that, but it should be, because it's got a lot of environmental toxins, environmental stuff that's naturally in the environment that's attached to it. Activation is also a marketing term because the zeolite is naturally activated. Now, the activation site is dependent upon if it's available or not. So a lot of people say, well, we activate our zeolite, which means that they're attempting just to take out those naturally occurring toxins and naturally occurring material so those sites are available. But it's still more of a marketing term. because it's, zeolite is active, and it's been proven in animal studies that raw zeolite that's been not cleaned up at all still works. That being said, it's better to have it cleaned up and not have those materials which could be potential allergens and introduced to the body. So that answer your question there?
Why have you? Yes, excellent. And so I understand that 0.3 microns is actually the best size for attracting and trapping toxins and heavy metals. And can you just tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, what we found is through the small intestine, through the villi of the small intestine, there's several mechanisms to get a mineral past that barrier through the villi of the small intestine. There's an enzymatic reaction that has to happen, but there's also a size requirement. And what we found out, and this again through different studies, is that particles that are above 0.3 do not readily pass the villi and go into the bloodstream. So 0.3 and below are a lot easier to get into the bloodstream. The particles that are above that tend to stay in the colon only. So that's the reason that the pure body product, we'd use a mean average of 0.3, which means there are particles larger than that, because we want particles to go to the colon, and we want particles to go into the bloodstream.
Great. Well, that's what we want, because we want detoxification to happen at the cellular level. Can you tell me if it matters if, oh, go ahead.
Well, also it matters because on the cellular level, unless you get it past the colon, past that small intestine, there's no chance of getting to the cells of the body at all.
Now, I've heard that the toxins can be trapped either inside the cage or outside the cage. Can you talk about that?
If you have a very large particle, then the tendency for the zeolite is to trap it at the activation point. Like I said before, this is a hydrated aluminum silicate. This charge only occurs where those aluminum bonds cross over each other. So that's where the negative charge happens. That's the numerical nature that creates a negative charge where that aluminum bond crosses over each other. So if that bond is exposed and it's not currently taken with something else, if it bumps into a heavy metal, then it wants to grab a hold of it and take it out of your system. The size issue is also on a surface area. So at the 0.3 micromean average, there's much more surface area, which means there's maybe more opportunities for the zeolites to take out material from everybody that shouldn't be there.
How much surface area would you say would be in, say, 1 gram of a product that was micronized down to 0.3?
Well, again, it's impossible to say for exactly sure, but if you take a theoretical, because we can't really measure the channels they're exposed in the actual cages and all that, because it's just too complex of geometry for us to truly measure. But if you take a theoretical sphere, that's just a perfect sphere, and you calculate that as 0.3 micron, then inside the bottle that would contain a gram of this zeolite, at 0.3 you would have about 2,300 square feet of surface area. We understand in reality that there's more than that because of the geometry of the zeolite. It's just impossible to calculate it exactly.
Well, that still sounds like a lot. That sounds like a lot of places to attract toxins to me.
It is quite an amount of surface area, and it is, if you take that down to larger the size, and of course you have less surface area.
Okay. Well, now I'd like to ask you something about the charge. I understand that this negative charge that this zeolite has is extremely strong, and that it can be high enough, it really works like a powerful magnet. So my question is if mercury is +2 and lead is +2, then it's going to bind really tightly if it has a very strong negative charge. What do you know what the negative charge actually is?
In reality, Vicki, we really don't know what that actual amperage of that charge really is. There's a lot of different factors that can go into that. There have been studies done on zeolite that suggest, and this is not confirmed yet, so I don't like to use the term absolutely, but to suggest that the charge can be what we call in the 3,000 to 4,000 microampere range. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot as far as microamps, but that's the basic charge that's equivalent to when your heart is beating, for example. That charge that contracts that muscle cell is in that same range. So it's a very powerful charge, but if you think about, again, we're talking about natural non-materials, that the clinophthalite is a sodium-calcium-based zeolite. So in other words, the ions that it has in there that take up that charge, because nature doesn't like to have things unbalanced, so if you have the negative charge, it's already going to attract a positive charge, something to it. So it's going to take a single valence bond like calcium or potassium, or in this case it's going to be sodium and calcium, to hang on to in nature. So when it goes inside your body and it comes up against a lead or a mercury or something else that's a higher valence charge, that's what we're talking about, it very willingly gives up that smaller valence charge of the calcium or the sodium and then takes up the higher valence charge of the heavy metal and then hangs on very tightly to that.
So even though calcium is +2 and mercury is +2, mercury has a much higher valence. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. It has a higher valence charge. It's a different form of the metal. It occurs in a different spot on the periodic table, and that's the difference of you just can't take it as a +2, equal to equal, because they're different as far as the valence charges of the actual metals themselves. Because calcium, people don't realize this, but calcium and potassium are part of the metal family.
Yes.
And the sodium is considered a metal as well. But they're in different parts of the periodic table, and they have different valence charges. And so the zeolite preference is for the stronger valence charges, we normally find with lead, nickel, cadmium, etc.
Great. So it takes out the bad stuff and just leaves the good stuff. Is that right?
Pretty much. That's simplified, but it's pretty much it.
Okay. Now, and so if you were comparing chelation with clinoptilolite versus like a medical chelation, something like EDTA or something like that, how would you compare that?
Vicki, they really can't be compared because they're meant for two totally different types of mechanisms. EDTA chelation, which is the federally recognized form of heavy metal chelation, is a very active dynamic process. It's much more than just a chemical absorption routine inside your physiology. So you really can't say they're the same. And you really can't say the zeolite is a chelation technique because it doesn't have that active component. Zeolite's very passive. It's just going to go in. It's just going to say, here it is. If it bumps into it, you'll take it. If it doesn't bump into it, it's not going to take it. So it's very passive. So that's the reason we really can't say it's a chelation technique. But it will with the surface area that we have exposed, it stands a good chance of doing a decent job, especially with continued use, to have a very good effect on the physiology.
Awesome. Well, I've got a slide up that shows about the molecular adaptive fit of getting some of the small, more toxic minerals inside and the bigger charged minerals outside. Do you have any comments you'd want to make on that?
Well, there's a couple of mechanisms here, because if you reduce the surface area down far enough, you get away from the cation exchange mechanism itself, which is the negative to positive exchange, and you get into also what we call zeta potential. And zeta potential is that charge which keeps likely charged particles apart. So if you talk about your colloidal minerals, you talk about anything that is a colloidal suspension, where you're talking about zeta charges. And zeta charges take that negative charge and put it on the entire surface of that particle. So it spreads it from simply where it's at the intersection of the aluminum bonds, and it takes that to the entire particle, which gives you more opportunity to attract particles which are a little bit larger, because in nature, pure metals are very rare. You know, we're dealing with nitrated salts. We're dealing with sulfated salts, some kind of salt-metal combination, which are fairly large molecules. The average size of the cages in clinophthalate is, 9 angstroms, which is very, very small. So we need to have, if you have a pure metal, they fit very well inside those cages. So if you have a salt, then you need a mechanism to go in there and take care of that salt in its entirety, because you don't want that broken apart, to expel that from your body. And that's where the interaction between the cation exchange and the zeta potential really works very well, because it involves the entire particle, not just part of it. It also allows for the particles to multiply. In other words, not just one particle of zeolite, but 20, 40, who knows how many particles will get to that particle, and the body will recognize that and export the entire thing outside your physiology.
Okay.
So that kind of explains things a little bit.
Since we're thinking about these cages, if you are sizing them down, we won't use micronizing, you said you like sizing them. When you're sizing them down, can you damage those cages, and would that affect that charge?
Yes, you can. I mean, if you use a typical mechanical process for milling your zeolite, in other words, you put in there like in a ball mill, which has hard stainless steel balls that rotate and bang against the zeolite, or if you use roller mills, which press between rollers, you can damage the cages, because again, it's that bond where that crosses where the charge occurs. You break the bond, the charge goes away. And then you have aluminum, you have silicates. So yes, it's very possible to damage the cage as you reduce it in size using mechanical means.
I do have people who say, well, I thought we were taking out heavy metals and we're putting in a mineral that's made out of aluminum, and that worries them. Can you address that?
Yeah, most certainly. It's been proven through many, many, many studies that zeolites are totally, totally inert. So, if you talk about, for example, the aluminum that's in a deodorant product, or aluminum that's inside of a herbicide, those are what we call bioavailable metals. In other words, they've been chelated, they've been changed so they can be absorbed through the skin. The aluminum silicates that are zeolite are truly inert. They do not chemically interact with the human body whatsoever. So there's no mechanism for them to be absorbed into the cells of the body. That's the reason they're eliminated from your system so quickly. So being totally inert, they go in there, they attract what they attract, and they leave your body. But there's zero other interaction with the physiology.
Okay. I have, my passion, as I expressed, being a women's health practitioner. I would love to have women who are pregnant using this product because it's passive. It's not allowing their toxins to be released actively, where it can cross the placental barrier and get into the preborn child. So what are your feelings about using clinoptilolite in pregnancy?
The only thing I can rely on are the studies they've done inside the animal studies, where they've studied, cattle, pigs, they've studied sheep, and they've studied chickens, and these were, breeding animals. And in several hundreds of studies with breeding animals, they never found where the zeolite damaged the fetus whatsoever. So they really have studied this to see what effect it has on that, and they couldn't find any, other than the animals didn't suffer from aflatoxins and other issues with modern agriculture that we have today.
Okay. Well, that's great. I have 5 grandchildren who have, where their mothers have taken clinoptilolite during their pregnancies, and if I told you how wonderful they are, you would just think I'm a grandmother bragging, so I won't. But they are quite exceptional. So on the screen I've got some things that are claims that people make about this, as far as that using the clinoptilolite can balance the blood pH to normal physiological pH. Could you talk about that?
Well, in some of the animal studies, again, it did help balance the pH of the blood and some of the blood serums. Have there been studies on people? There really haven't been. If you just take the pH of clinoptilolite in water, the pH is somewhere between 8 to 8.5, which is fairly, basic material. It's up there as far as the pH. So if you're in a condition where your body is acidic, and it makes sense logically, even though there's been no studies on it, it'll help reduce that acidity down as it goes in the blood and help that return to normal. Is it an active ingredient, or does it actively do that? No, it's not, because it's truly passive. It's a byproduct from the natural pH of the clinoptilolite itself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we have to understand that this is just a very passive thing it's doing and not active.
And the clinoptilolite is never metabolized or stored in the body. Is that correct? And
that is correct. Because again, remember I said a while ago, when you get through the villi of the small intestine, there's an enzymatic reaction that has to happen, as well as the size has to be correct. Well, as it passes through the membranes of the small intestine, it's tagged with an enzyme. And that tag is basically, you've got X number of hours to be in the body, then you're out of here. So that tag also keeps it from being actively used by the physiology. So it's truly passive. It's truly inert.
Well, we like to say that you just take in the clean zeolite cage and then you excrete a dirty one. Does that sound pretty reasonable to you?
That's pretty reasonable, especially in the pure body, because that's the only one I can really speak to, and I know how that's treated in the process. So I know the tests that we do on that to ensure that it's clean. So I'll speak to that product and say that I know that one's pure, and when it goes in clean, it'll come out dirty.
Okay, and that is actually the next thing we're going to talk about, and that is the Pure Body detox product that's being brought to us by a company called Touchstone. And what can you tell me about this product and why you think that it might be a superior product in the industry regarding detoxification, passive detoxification?
Well, when I first started studying this for the human physiology, there were 3 things that I looked at overall, and one was that there was a very large lack of hard information, that there were a lot of nebulous claims, there were a lot of things which were stated, but there was never any proof of that claim. So they didn't source it, they didn't say, here's what we did, etc. Well, Pure Body, when I became associated with Touchstone and we started working with them, I made it very clear that we had to source everything, that we weren't going to make statements which were inflammatory, we weren't going to make statements that couldn't be proved and backed up with hard science. And so far now, I can't claim to say I've studied all of the manufacturers out there, but the ones I've looked at, I've had a problem coming up with their science. And that's the difference with the pure body product. That we can go and we got the papers and we can source the papers and we can say, here's where our studies came from and here's why we feel the way we feel. The other thing, we've used the term micronization before and all those kind of terms which really don't mean a whole lot. So we said, okay, well, we're going to size our particle based on the physiology to a mean average of 0.3 microns, because that's the average particle that really does well for getting to the bloodstream. Getting through that villi of the small intestine and really working well. It also means there's particles larger than that that will continue on to the colon, because you can't ignore the colon in the entire process. We talked about mechanical damage. The milling process is where my physics and my knowledge of using zeolites in very esoteric applications come in, because we did study how to make this very, very efficient for what it was supposed to do. And that's where I was able to study, if you crush these cages, you lose the charge and do all that. So using that previous experience, I was able to come up with a process to mill this product down to 0.3 average and not damage the cage, which is important because we have, intact cages and very little, what we call peripheral damage.
That's good.
The difference between the particle sizes for our surface area, again, we're running, and this is, again, a theoretical, but we're running around 2,300 square feet of the surface area. And zeolite is purely based on surface area. If the inner cages are not exposed to the contaminant, they have no way of grabbing the contaminant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's logical and that makes common sense, but people really don't think about it. That if you have a particle that's too large and most of the cages are internal, it's not going to help you in your healing process. So we found a way to get a greater surface area. When I start talking again about this product and hard data, I was wanting to have true third-party testing, and we have that. We have a laboratory that we're not financially intertwined, we're not fiduciarily entwined. It's a true independent third-party lab that's certified, that is inspected. I mean, it's a very high-quality laboratory, and we do very extensive testing. So that when we present this product, we're taking the officer of the company, and I'm an officer of the company as chief science officer, out of the equation. We're saying, here's our science, here's our third-party testing, here's what we can prove. And for me, if I was going to build a business and have my family security based on that business, that's personally what I would want.
Well, it sounds like verification and transparency is just going to be hallmark.
That's the philosophy, that's the heart of the company, is doing things ethically, doing things transparently, and just, basically being able to prove what we say through the papers and through valid, third-party, peer-reviewed studies.
The company recommends that the dose that people should take is 4 drops 3 times a day. And is there a reason that they chose that particular dose to recommend?
Yes, there's a very specific reason. There's been that term thrown out there that zeolites have the GRAS status, generally recognized as safe, which is very, very true. That GRAS status with the federal government is based on 3 grams of zeolite per month. No more than that. So the federal government doesn't recognize higher volumes per month as safe. 3 grams and below, they do. So in our bottle, we have 3 grams of zeolite. When you divide that out in our bottle, it comes out to 4 drops 3 times a day. Because we're trying to stay and do things ethically and stay within the guidelines of the law, the GRAS status. We're just trying to do things correctly.
My experience with this is that one of the ways I like to describe this is that you're putting in a clean, dry sponge, and you're excreting a wet, dirty sponge. Can you talk about any risks that people might have of dehydration as it's pulling the toxins into the cage of also attracting water? Can you speak to that?
You know, with very high volumes of zeolite, I can see that happening. But if you stay inside the federal guidelines, if you stay within that 3 grams per month, that's not going to be an issue. You know, in the Western culture, we oftentimes have a little bit works good, a whole lot must work a whole lot better. And that's not necessarily the case. You know, they found that in some of the animal studies at higher volumes that there were problems with dehydration, there were problems with digestion, there were problems with, you know, different functionalities of the body at higher volumes. And that's where that GRAS status kind of came from, that 3 grams per month is based on those animal studies. So if we stay within that range, if you stay around at 3 grams per month, it's going to be very, very safe. And you're not going to see those other things that have been reported sometimes.
Would you somewhat dose according to body weight? So like a child, you would take less?
You know, if you talk about dosing, you're talking about a pharmaceutical, and this really isn't. So it's not so much a dose, it's more of that the 3 grams per month is generally safe for almost anybody. You know, I have a saying that if you say an absolute with a natural product, Mother Nature will make you look like an idiot. So, you know, but the 3 grams per month is generally recognized as safe for a reason, because it's been so well studied. And again, a lot of these are animal studies, not human studies, but they've been so well studied with all age groups of those animals that they feel comfortable in getting at the GRAS status.
Okay, great. Now, there's some products that are coming out that use all different kinds of zeolites and also using both passive and active methods. Do you think that it's necessary to make these combinations, or do you think clinoptilolite is adequate to do the job?
Well, if you go back to the way the zeolites work, you have a negatively charged particle that's going to attract a positively charged material. You know, opposites attract. So logically, it doesn't make sense to me to add, for example, different acids, different ingredients, because if they're positively charged, they're going to take up the activation sites versus doing things inside your body. So for me, it doesn't make sense from a chemistry standpoint to add other ingredients to the zeolite products. Now, I understand that there are some reasons why they would want to add those, you know, from a marketing standpoint, but I really can't speak for how they chose to do that. But when I was developing this product, and I am the developer, that I was really looking at the purity of how this works. You know, it's opposite. You know, you got a negatively charged particle. You have an opposite, you know, positively charged contaminant. They click together like magnets and holds on and it gets out of your system. You know, anything that interferes with that is a problem. It's just not going to be as effective as it could be in a pure state, in my opinion.
Well, I felt that way too, and that when I'm giving it to pregnant women and children, and I just feel like a product that is pure would be better. Is there any other questions that I have not asked that you would like to say something about using clinoptilolite or a pure body product?
Well, if you take a look at the pure body product, there's 2 ingredients. There's zeolite and there's water. And that's simply it. You know, we try to keep this product as natural as possible because we understand that there's things we just don't know. And even though we understand zeolites very well, there are some things about zeolites which are still, somewhat miraculous. So if we keep this product intact, we don't adulterate it with anything, we keep it pure, then we feel we give the body this best chance to do what it does naturally. But when you only have 2 ingredients, which is, we don't add preservatives to this product because it doesn't need them. We don't add other things to this product because, again, we don't think it's as effective as it would be by itself. We're very proud of this product. So.
Well, I think you should be. I think it's going to be wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to using it on a regular basis. Well, I really appreciate, Dr. Holdford, you taking your time to answer all these questions. And if you're going to stay on the line, we're almost done, and then we'll allow people to ask questions here in just a minute. Some of the things that we've talked about tonight are pretty revolutionary. In fact, I think that once you grasp the power that detoxifying the body of heavy metals and toxins, what that can accomplish for you and for your family, I think it's just revolutionary. It really is, because right now people are looking for a way to deal with this concern that they have about what to do about all these environmental toxins. And this is a way to do it safely, effectively, and for very, very low cost. And so I hope that as I've addressed these change factors, that you have come to believe that detoxification is possible, that you've developed a new vision of what you can do for you and your family in getting these toxins out, that you believe that detoxing your body would be beneficial, that it would be worth it, and that it would be safe and convenient and easy to incorporate into your lifestyle. Just putting a few drops in water or food or even on your tongue and taking it, I mean, how easy is that? I mean, I totally believe that in the very near future, everyone will carry a bottle of Pure Body in their pocket or purse so that they can detoxify on the spot if they need to. They're going to want to have this on board when they eat fish or when they have a toxic insult of some kind. But just to have it in general all day long as we eat, as we breathe, as we drink things, to just know that we have the confidence that we have this product floating in our body, ready and available to grab onto those toxins and remove them for us, is just, to me, it just really eases my mind. So that's why I believe that detoxification is the missing link in your journey to optimal health. I think that you should use it as part of your health regimen every day. So we're going to answer some questions now, but if you found anything that we talked about tonight interests you and you want to learn more, please go to contact the person who invited you to attend this presentation. And also, if you want to learn more about the Pure Body product, you can go to touchstoneessentials.com. And you can watch the little video and then get back with the person who told you about it. Okay, so let's see what questions we have. We have virtually our entire audience has stayed to the very end. I'm very excited about that. So let's open up and see what questions we have. If you have a question, please, you can type it in where you see there's a place that says questions. And if you have a question, just type it and we'll see it and we will answer your questions. we may have just answered all of your questions, because usually I have 15 or 20 questions that come in afterwards. So maybe everybody's typing. I know people can type. Maybe I need to push them here. Maybe that's where they're at. Aha, there they are. Okay. Ah, yes, there's a whole bunch of questions. Okay, it says, with a child, would you start out with maybe only 1 drop a day of the Pure Body and then increase it over time? Would you like to address that, Dr. Holdford?
You know, it's to your comfort level. Again, the zeolite products inside the grass test been studied with small animals and lightweight animals, smaller than a child. It depends on your personal preferences. Is that going to do anything but make it a little bit slower, perhaps? That's all. I mean, so it's not going to be, in the long run of things, a great problem for it to start off smaller and then step up based on how you see your child respond. But that's going to be to the individual parent's comfort level, and I would really suggest they stay within that comfort level.
Yeah, I've always been kind of a start low and go slow person myself, especially if you know your child is someone who's very sensitive to things. You can certainly start with 1 drop given to keep the product on board, since it's excreted after 8 hours. You want to dose about 3 times a day. I usually encourage people to do it when they get up, do it maybe in the late afternoon when they get home from work, and then around bedtime. And it becomes just really habit. I keep a bottle on the windowsill, and then I carry one in my purse. So I get up in the morning and I go in first thing to get a drink of water, and I have my drops. And then when I get home from work, they're sitting there on the windowsill. First thing I do when I walk in the kitchen is I have my drops, and then when I'm ready for bed, I go in to have a little drink before I go to bed, and then I have my 3rd dose. So that's how I personally dose it. But with the people that have a concern, you know, you can certainly start with 1 drop 3 times a day, and then as you feel comfortable, then you can increase it by 1 to 2 drops, and then to 3, and then to the recommended of 3 to 4. It says, will 12 drops a day cover the body surface area? Dr. Holdford, that sounds like a good one for you.
You know, will it cover the body surface area in its entirety? By no means, because there's parts of the body where it's very difficult to get fluids to. And this is based on how well your circulatory system is responding to everything else. So as an absolute, no. 12 drops won't do it. 12 drops every day consistently over a period of time will. And that's about the best way I can
Okay. So one time doing 12 drops, doing that one time is not going to do it, but over time, as you keep it in circulation, over time it's going to be very effective for you.
It's going to be very effective, but the stated 12 drops by itself, no, it won't do that.
Okay. It says, where is it found about the FDA GRAS status of 3 grams per month?
That is inside the FDA, federal, FDA.gov website. They have a full list of what has GRAS status and those requirements. But it's on the FDA.gov website.
If you go to that's one of my favorite sites, the PubMed.gov site, and the other day I typed in clenoptilolite, and it had, I think, 302 studies or something like that. So there's a lot. Not all of them, of course, involving human consumption, but.
Yeah, but the grass status specifically, if you go into the FDA.site, you type in grass status, it'll lead you through a menu option to get down to the specifics of the grass status for the zeolite.
Right. The next person asks how can I get this product, and is it available in stores? This product is sold through word-of-mouth marketing, through direct marketing, and you purchase it from someone who is also a product user. And so if you contact me at toxinclear@gmail.com, I will be more than happy to put you in touch with somebody that can help you to get this product. Like I say, it's very reasonably priced, $25 for a bottle if you purchase it as a member, $36 if you want to just simply buy retail off someone else's website. And if you buy it monthly on auto ship, you get free shipping too, so that's pretty nice. It says, where can we see these test results about the particle size, and where are you going to get to see these results?
Well, you're currently getting those results, and those will be posted at the Touchstone Essentials website. Again, I wish, I'm going to have people please bear with us that we're just now starting this up, and the website is new, and so we are having some technical difficulties, but that's where they'll be posted.
Yes.
So again,
the company's is fairly young and still going through a little bit of growing pains. We just started shipping the product this week, and I do have people who say, "Well, this is a new product." Really, it's not, because clenoptilolite is clenoptilolite. It has its principles, and it's really how you enhance those principles. And from everything that I have seen personally, and everything that I know after 6 years of personally taking and lecturing on clenoptilolite, this Pure Body product has just maximally enhanced all of the intrinsic qualities that are in the clenoptilolite. So pretty exciting. Next question is, how can I buy in Canada? Again, you can purchase in Canada, and the company will mail product to you. If you want to contact me at toxinclear@gmail, I can put you in touch with a Canadian person. When people with joint pain, back, legs, get relief using the zeolite in Pure Body, are they not pulling out toxins like heavy metals and industrial chemicals within the fatty tissue, joints, and bones?
If the fluid of the body can get to the cell, then it stands a very good chance of attracting and pulling out heavy metal toxins. Is it specifically, would it work for joint pain and things like that? I really can't say, because there's been no studies done on that, so I really don't know. And that's one thing you're going to find about me personally is I don't know. I'll just tell you I don't know. And as a researcher, I like to base myself and my answers based on hard science and questions versus conjecture or versus dramatics. So there's been no studies on joint pain with zeolite. What I would say is if you reduce the body's toxic load, there's a very good chance that you'll become healthier. If you're healthier, then it's reasonable to expect that certain conditions would lessen based on simply your being healthier. And that's probably a reasonable assumption.
Well, my experience as a healthcare provider, and I've been using this with my family, friends, and patients for about 6 years, and I have seen remarkable results with it, and there are multiple testimonies from people about the benefits that they have received. But as a scientist, I love it that Dr. Holdford is not hyping up this product or making it sound like it's a panacea and it will do everything, you know, on the planet. Because we are complex. Human beings are extremely complex, and I don't believe that there's a panacea that's going to fix every single thing for every single person, and so I'm glad that we're not going to make those kinds of claims. Someone said that when he refers to eliminating, when you, Dr. Holdford, referred to eliminating the toxins from the body, what is the actual elimination process? That's a really good question.
Actually, it goes through the kidneys. For the majority of it that goes into your bloodstream, it's going to go through the kidneys. The rest of it's going to go through the colon. And this very small part of it's going to go through the bile complex and be dumped into the colon. So those are the three major ways. Your sweat glands and all that are going to be pretty minor players in this.
Now, my understanding and my experience is that doing this, because of its passivity, really puts no strain on the liver or the kidneys. It's basically pre-packaging your toxins for elimination, and then they just travel through this to be eliminated. Is that a good statement?
That's a good statement. Yes, that's correct.
Now, what would be the consequences if someone took more than 3 grams in a month?
I really don't know. There's been some studies done where there were some digestion issues, there were some other issues, but we really don't know because there have been no human studies done. We just understand that, you know, we have to operate within federal guidelines to operate within the law, so that's where we have the 3 grams. And that's what we have to recommend.
It says, what types of studies has Dr. Holdford done over the last few years involving zeolites, I guess?
The studies I've done previously with zeolite are classified, and I can't really talk about them because they were done under the auspices of the Department of Defense. So again, I can't refer to those directly. What I can say is that because of perceptual issues, Touchstone Essentials has relied on independent outside research for verification of what we feel is true.
Well, you have worked in the nuclear industry and worked with radiation issues. Can you address anything about that?
Zeolite's been used in the soils for nuclear remediation. It's been used in water for nuclear remediation for a long time inside the nuclear industry. What I can't say, because it's not been studied, is that the zeolites will remove radiation from the human physiology, because we simply do not know that. What I would say is a person that has concern that they can do their due diligence, do their studies, and then try it and see if they like it or not.
I know there's a big concern with this over in Japan, and my understanding is that they are using a lot of clinoptilolites to help with that cleanup over there. What do you know about that?
They're shipping tons of clinoptilolite over to Japan, but it's mostly for soil and water remediation. I don't have any hard data or hard facts on what they're doing for the human population. But I do know they're shipping over for the soil and water.
Okay. Yeah, my son called me one day and he said, Mom, I just saw on CNN that they're dropping clinoptilolite in the water around the power plant. So, now I have a question that says, what temperature would it take to release the bonds of the molecule and release the toxins that were captured?
It's somewhere around 700 degrees C to about 850 degrees C is the temperature range that would happen at. And if you think about 100 degrees C being the boiling point of water, there's a long way to go before release.
I know I've had people say, well, what if this gets heated up in my car in the summer? And I say, well, since it takes 750 degrees to do it, it can really damage it. You know, I don't think it's you're gonna have to worry about that in your car.
Again, this is a very, very inert substance.
I have a question that's kind of a business question. It says, what other countries besides Canada can it be shipped to? The middle of March, I believe March the 20th, Touchstone is actually opening a warehouse in the Netherlands so that they can ship directly into European Union countries from Europe. And this makes it so much simpler than if they were shipping from the United States into Spain, from the United States into England, from the United States into Germany. They're going to actually have it in a facility there so that they can directly ship through to the European nations. I have a person who's doing Touchstone who is from Romania, and they'll be able to ship to him there. So and I'm actually have an appointment to speak with a woman in Barcelona tomorrow. So you can really take this product all over. I know they have plans to be in Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore very, very quickly. I don't have an exact date, but I do have the exact date for the European Union, which is March the 20th, so it's coming up pretty quick. It says, what is the name of this product that I am looking at? It's called Pure Body. Pure Body is the name, and it's made by a company called Touchstone. You see on your screen Touchstone Essentials. You can go on the website. You can click on products. After you watch about a 2-minute, really fun video that tells kind of the philosophy behind what Touchstone is trying to accomplish in the nutritional and detox arena. And then you can look at the products and go to the Pure Body product. The other products are made of whole foods. They're not heated so that they are able to maintain all the fresh, wholesome goodness. Because when you heat things, very often you affect the nutrient content, the enzymes, and the synergy that happens within food when it's, and so nothing is chemically isolated. You're not taking a product and making some folic acid in a factory somewhere and dumping that in there and making some B12 somewhere and dumping that in there and taking some, they're not chemical isolates. Everything is naturally occurring as it does in nature. And so this is the philosophy that we have, is that what nature has made is way better than anything we can do. And I think that's absolutely true as well for the zeolite. This is one of the basic minerals that have been there since the earth was formed, and now it's been able to be used by us at this time when toxins have become so prevalent. It's just been wonderful to have the ability to create this product and to find the way to size it down to make sure when you do that you don't destroy the negative charge so that it can attract, trap, and remove toxins from your body at a time such as this. It says, what third-party lab are you using?
Right now, that's proprietary information. They'll be, when we post it, their name and address will be up on the website, but we've got to get written permission from them before we can post this.
Okay.
So they'll be identified when it goes up on the site after we get their written permission.
It says, so are 4 drops 3 times a day, will that work for people who are both ill and well?
It'll work for anyone. literally anyone.
Okay. Do you recommend an increased amount to detox for the first month, and after that's done, then how much would you use for a maintenance dose?
Again, it's the attitude of the little bit works, a lot must work better. The body can only handle so much at one time. It only can excrete a certain volume at a certain time. So I would say stay within the 12 drops per day, 4 drops 3 times a day, as the most effective way to use this product, and not worry about going up and down on it. Because it works best with the natural physiology.
Good. Yes. Someone's asking if this lecture is being recorded. It absolutely is. It will be on the Building Strength Webinars website, which is buildingstrengthwebinars.com, and it's webinars with an S, .com, and that this can be, as I said in the beginning, you can purchase it singly as a, it's free when you come and hear it live, and then it's $5 to get to hear this particular lecture. Or you can join Building Strength Webinars for $25 a year, and then you can access this 24/7 as often as you want, over and over and over again if you want to. And all the other things. Building Strength Webinars has just amazing people. I heard an incredible lecture one time on antioxidants for cancer. And, some doctors say take antioxidants. Some say don't take antioxidants. And this woman gave just an excellent explanation about when it would be beneficial and when it wouldn't, and what kinds of cancers you're going to need to be careful, and which antioxidants are good for cancer and which antioxidants you want to avoid. And it was just a fascinating lecture. And that's the kind of quality lectures that Dr. David likes to bring in. And so sometimes, these things go on a little bit longer than just a little 30-minute, give you the highlights. But people who really want to know about this information in depth, this is a great place to do that. Okay, the next question says, will there be a transcript of it? No, I don't think so. You just have to listen to it. Isn't radiation a positively charged toxin? And if so, because zeolite is negatively charged and it attracts all positive charged toxins. So it's asking about that. Dr. Holdford?
Again, with the blanket statement, that's not always true. In fact, there are some negatively charged radiation particles. And that's a problem sometimes because we can't use blanket statements. Should the radiation particle be positive and should it be in the right area at the right time, then it's logical to assume that the zeolite will take it out. But again, because there's been no studies done, we really don't know what that radiation, that energy signature does to the zeolite. We do know that it works in soil. We know it works in water. But that doesn't always translate to the human physiology.
Okay. It says, is this something that you would take every day indefinitely?
For me personally, I would. The environmental toxins, the environmental exposure doesn't end. So the continuous use of this makes sense to me personally.
Yeah, I love it when people ask me that question, because I just usually say, well, how long are you planning to eat, breathe, and drink? Because if you are, you're having daily exposures. And that's one of the things I love about this, actually, is because if I eat fish today, I don't want to have to wait for the weekend so that I can go and take a laxative and try to purge, or go get a massage so I can get some essential oils to work on this, or to go through expensive chelation treatments. I just want something that on a daily basis is just going to remove these toxins for me. It's just completely eliminated that stress of wondering. I mean, it used to be I would eat some fish and I'd go, well, I know there's probably mercury in this, but oh well, and I would just eat it. Now I just go, well, there's mercury in this fish. I don't care. I know that I have clinoptilolite on board, and it's going to take care of it for me. And next time I go to the bathroom, it won't be in my body anymore. So,
and this product's been studied for daily use. It's been studied in animals for daily use, so it's a very safe product to take every day as well. Unlike other products which have potential side effects, this usually does not.
It says if this is just zeolite and water, what keeps the particles of the zeolite from falling to the bottom of the bottle? Good question.
Again, the zeta potential and the size that we, get to with the 0.3 mean average keeps us pretty much in suspension. And if you do let it sit long enough, it will settle a little bit. I mean, it's going to settle and have a little layer of water on top. It's not going to settle all the way out because the specific gravity of that small particle is balanced with the water like in a colloidal suspension.
Okay.
We still recommend shaking the bottle, though.
It says, I've heard that the pH of pure body is around 7.3, and can you tell us what the ORP level is?
Well, ORP can stand for a lot of different things. What are they talking about specifically? Because ORP can stand for a lot of different.
I don't know either.
So, I mean,
if that person can put that in, that would be great.
Again, I don't want to assume that I know what they're talking about. Again, I don't want to assume I know what they're talking about.
Stands for, and we'll answer your question. I work OBGYN, and we have LNPs, and we have just tons of those kinds of acronyms in it.
Yeah, I'm not willing to assume I know what they're asking.
It says, how long would it take to detox with mercury toxicity from dental amalgams?
Again, that's such an individual question. I really don't know. There's blood work and hair analysis that will tell you how much mercury is in your system, but how your individual body responds is not very definable. I would say personally, I would continue to take the product until the tests show negative. In other words, don't show any more mercury.
I do have a person who has asked about comparing this product to other clinoptilolite products on the market, and you and I talked about that before the presentation started, and we both kind of agreed that, our purpose here is to talk about what is good science and to talk about clinoptilolite and how it can benefit people, and not to compare it or create conflict with any other company's product. You want to talk about that, Dr.?
Well, again, it's my personal belief that you can't build your business, you can't build your life by tearing other people down. There's also another hard reality, is I've not been able to study all the other manufacturers out there, so I simply don't know what they will and won't do. I know what Pure Body will do, and that's what I'd like to speak to.
Right. Well, I have another very interesting question. It says, GMO ingredients are being refused by many countries. Would the zeolite recognize a real nutrient, would recognize a real nutrient from a GMO nutrient or GMO particle? So would it take this out of the system as a foreign agent in the body?
Again, there's been 0 studies done with the zeolites with GMO products, so I really don't know. I have no idea.
That would be an interesting one to do, though. I was at Oklahoma State University. They had a lecture that was on sustainable farming and organic farming and that sort of thing. And afterwards they had kind of a discussion, and they came out and the topic about GMO food came up. And I thought we were going to just have a knockdown, drag-out people because one group formed on one side saying, well, we've got to have these GMO products because otherwise we'll never feed the world and the whole world will starve. And then the other part was all saying, no, we can't do that because of what it's doing genetically to the plants and to the environment, to the bees, to every aspect of it. What's your feeling? Do you have any strong feelings about that?
Well, Vicki, I do have some feelings about that, and I would say that if a person has the opportunity, I would probably lean toward the heritage, plants themselves. That being said, the GMO products are very pervasive. In the United States, there's no labeling requirements. So here in the States, we don't know what foods we're eating that's been genetically modified. So for people to have a choice, I would rather say that I would get with my legislation and try to get laws passed where labeling is required so that people can make an informed decision based on their own research.
Now, the products that Touchstone is going to have, they're not going to have any GMO products. Is that correct?
As far as I'm aware, there's no GMO products in those formulations.
Okay. For someone who has recently had brachytherapy, targeted high-dose radiation, and is experiencing fatigue, would this be safe and beneficial?
Would it be safe for them? I don't have any doubt that it would be safe for them. Would it be beneficial? Again, that would be dependent upon their own physiology and how their body responds. But I would say they would be safe for them, yes. Not being a medical doctor, I can't say definitively yes or no, because I don't have those credentials.
It says, for how long can you take it maximum? Well, we kind of answered that. You can virtually take it every day the rest of your life if you want to.
Yes, that's correct.
Do you need to shake this?
You do
and
need
we
to shake
talked about that.
Yeah, you need to shake it.
That's probably a good idea. Do you know what the absorption rate is into the bloodstream?
Well, since we're running at a 0.3 mean average, then approximately half the particles are at that average or below, and half of them are at that average and above. So I would say at least 50% of it should be absorbed into the bloodstream. And there's been 0 studies on that, so this is an estimation on my part based on the size structure that we know. Give or take a little bit, but that would seem to me to be a realistic and logical assumption.
Would there be a way of putting it in and then measuring excretion rates through the urine, and would that be a way to kind of know how much you put in and how much came out through the urine, which would indicate that it was excreted and that it went into the bloodstream?
You can do that, but I can tell you that the test to measure zeolites, the test is called X-ray diffraction, and they run about $550 per test. So is it possible? Yes. It's very expensive.
Mm-hmm. Could you use some of the drops in an Epsom salts bath to draw the metals out through the skin?
Again, zeolites are not readily absorbed through the skin. The skin is such a pervasive barrier that there's been 0 studies done on that as far as absorption through the skin. So what I'm going to say is based on personal opinion about what I know about how the skin works. So please everybody know this is a personal opinion. But I don't personally believe that zeolite absorbs through the skin. I feel strongly it has to be internal, not external.
Okay. I know from my personal experience, I have seen that on wounds, applying it to wounds I've seen benefits.
Now, there are some studies done on wound care.
And that sort of thing.
Yeah, there are some studies done on wound care and wound healing. They're on PubMed that do show that, but that's not an intact skin barrier either.
Right.
So,
right.
That's a whole different question than the question will absorb through the skin itself.
Right. Right. It says, could you repeat again what the surface area is for a gram of zeolite?
If you base it on theoretical 0.3 micron spherical particle, and you ignore the crevices, the cages, the channels, all that kind of stuff, then you're looking at somewhere around 2,300 square feet in a gram. And that's a rough estimate because we cannot not measure it exactly, and it's based on a theoretical assumption.
Okay. Could we put these drops in our nose to help as a decongestant? Of course, I know that's getting into that treating, curing, preventing thing that we can't really talk about. But would it be safe to put the drops in your nose?
Would it hurt you? No, I don't believe so. Would it be effective for the congestion? I have zero idea. I don't know.
Okay. Awesome, somebody says. That's good. It's always nice to know people are out there enjoying this. It says, are there any human studies, and why have you only looked at animal studies?
There are very few human studies done, and the reason being is they're so extravagantly expensive to do. There's been many more animal studies done on the effects of the zeolite compounds. It's just the reality of the marketplace and what it actually takes to do a human study is so expensive that most people, including large institutions, are just not able to do it. So we rely on what we call test tube studies or in vitro studies or animal studies for cost reasons.
Someone asked about putting it in their eyes.
Personally, I wouldn't do that. Again, we have a full 3 grams of product in this bottle. It's a slurry. It's thick. It's a colloidal slurry. I personally wouldn't put it in my eyes. Can I say it would harm the eyes or whatever? I don't know that. But personally, I question the reason why you wouldn't want to put it in your eyes, because it really doesn't absorb that well. But I cannot ever recommend putting it in someone's eyes, because this is such a thick slurry that I would perceive it to be irritating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has a slight grainy texture, although no taste. It does have a slight texture. But what's interesting is when you drop it in water, it just like disappears.
Yeah,
it's
a total
it doesn't like drop hard to the bottom or anything. It just like disappears. So,
but would I put this product straight from the bottle of my eyes? Personally, no, I would not.
Yeah, but not straight from the bottle.
No.
I think, and again, someone asked, what's the name of this product again? It's called Pure Body. It's from a company called Touchstone Essentials. And if you want to contact me at toxinclear@gmail.com, I can put you in touch with someone who can get this product for you. And you can also go to the touchstoneessentials.com website just to look around and get more information. Okay, let's see if we got any more. I think we're at the very end. I think that's everything. Well, we had so many people who stayed to the very end, and I just really appreciate that very much. If you have further questions, or you come up with, you get off the presentation here and you think, oh, I meant to ask that. just email me your question at toxinclear@gmail, and I will get in touch with Dr. Holdford for you, and we will get you an answer. I really appreciate you being on the presentation tonight and joining us, and I hope you found it beneficial and gave you some more information on why it's important to detox. I hope that I have shown you that it's possible, it would be beneficial, and that it would be so easy to do. So you all have a lovely night, and thank you so much for attending. Bye-bye.